Good morning, everyone. I'm really delighted to be here with you to talk about this new, wonderful, expanded project. Want to acknowledge that this is one of the longest running community indicator programs that we have at CGR, so we're really grateful to the funders for their support of this project over almost a decade, and also feel that it's a wonderful resource for the community in terms of being able to find data and analysis that's pertinent to the wonderful jobs that you all do. So thank you again to the funders. CGR is a nonprofit research and consulting firm located up in Rochester. As Jennifer mentioned, we do a number of these projects as well as other projects related to local government, program evaluation, and the like. So just to give a bit of an overview of the project, some of you hopefully are already quite familiar with it, but we are tracking data for 59 separate indicators on this website. And so an indicator is kind of a discrete statistic, so something like high school graduation rate, job growth, something like that. And you can see there the 9 topics that are part of this project. Jennifer's already talked to you about the counties that are covered. For every indicator that we present on the site, we also present United States and state information as context wherever it's available. And then there is a lot of local data available on this site. As you know, many towns, villages, and cities in this region, and particularly with the expansion of all those counties, we are talking about a lot of local data that's available to you. Again, if you've been on the site, this is a little bit of review, but for every indicator on the site, we present a data visualization. So that's usually a chart, although one of the new things that we've added, and I'll be showing you in a little bit, is maps that for some of the indicators. There's also a text connected with every indicator that defines the indicator precisely, talks about what the trends have been, explains why that indicator is important, and then also includes kind of the technical details about any caveats that should be noted when analyzing and using the data. We roll up our analysis by topic area, so there's a key trend summary for each of the topics that we cover, and then that's all put together into a regional overview, which is sort of your little bag of data that you can take from the site pretty easily. And then there's resources peppered throughout the website, so there's resources available for every topic, and then a general resources page as well, so that you can explore additional information and data. So what's new with this relaunch, we've already discussed a couple of the items, but the dashboard we'll be showing you in a little bit. I'm not going to focus on that too much, but that's a really exciting part of the project because you can get sort of a graphical high-level summary of the indicators for particular geographies. And again, it's something that if you needed to, you could print and take with you. We've added those counties, as Jennifer already mentioned. We've added the maps for census, sourced indicators. Many of them on the site you can now display not only in a chart but also in a map form. And then we've added some specific new indicators, which I'm really excited about because I think these speak to some of the emerging issues that this region and many other regions face, particularly around addiction and income levels and the ability of folks to support themselves. So now we will kind of do a little bit of a tour of the site, and for this I'm going to be jogging back there. One of the things I actually didn't mention is that the site is now responsive. So this is actually the mobile view of the site, not the desktop view, which is kind of nice to be able to show you actually. But if you were familiar with the old site, it was really pretty unusable on a phone. This site is much, much different. It's been completely redesigned and overhauled to be very mobile friendly. So one of the things you're probably used to from being on your phones, as much as I'm sure you are these what they call hamburger menus. So this is kind of a primary feature of navigating the site. You click on these to get everywhere pretty much you want to go. So I'm actually I should have probably gone through the homepage, but one of the really exciting parts, I think, of the new site is the immediate access to individual indicator data. So again, if you remember the old site, you had to click about 4 times to get to see a chart. Now you can pretty much go right to whatever you want to see. So you click on a topic here, you select an indicator, and boom, you're there. Scroll down, and you get this chart that you're probably kind of used to seeing, if you use the old project. It's still, and of course it's got more counties and local areas available in it, still the ability to kind of select and deselect to add things to the chart. which is kind of nice. So you can see the whole chart changes when you pull up a region that really has, in this case, a higher, unfortunately, level of child poverty. And then we can visit our hamburger menu again if you want to print this chart nicely, download it in a variety of image formats, make a PDF out of it, pop it into a presentation, whatever you might want to do. Scrolling down a little more, this is the text analysis that I referred to. So the definition, the trends analysis, these notes for people who are into statistics. And then we have the data tables. So this first data table is actually showing you the rate information. And then you can see, because there are so many, very many, cities, towns, and villages, these are collapsible menus. So you click on this to see it. Oh, and that's only one, so that doesn't really give you the full effect there. And then you click on it again to make it go away. And then if you scroll a little further, you get the actual numbers, which is often quite important, and same kind of display, same ability to click to see local data information. One of the features you may notice about this layout that we have is, so you don't have to scroll up to the top to visit new things. A lot of the navigation repeats toward the bottom, so if you keep scrolling here, you can actually get to any of the other indicators right from here that are within this topic area, and you can even flip to a whole different topic and look at something else. So again, that kind of really quick, easy access. I am going to scroll back up, though, to show you the map. So this is one of the indicators that we do have a map available for, and it's, there's a tab right next to the chart that you use to select the map. And so now we're looking at a very large map. It's larger than we want to see, so we scroll in to focus in on the region. We got to make a few little adjustments here as we go. These carets are what you click on to see the legend, so what the colors actually mean. Then you can click on polygons to get the information. If you run into this, this is kind of a hinky little problem we're working on solving, but if you run into this and you're not actually able to see the data, click on this box, and that'll show you the data for that polygon that you've selected. In this case, it's Sullivan County, and it gives you the rate information, the raw information, and the notes about the data right there. And then, as I have alluded to, you can scroll in to see data for local areas as well, using the scroll function right here. Zoom in, I guess I should say, not scroll. So we have to zoom in a few times. But now I'm at the local level. So I can click again here, and it's being obnoxious again. But if I click on that box, I can see what the level is for this very local area. So that's how the map works. And just to go back to the home page for a second, just to give you a sense of what that looks like. It's pretty different than the original site that we had. Features a lot of really lovely photography representing all the different parts of the region. That scrolls by itself often. If it doesn't, you can click on these carets to see the other pictures and some of the data highlights. Scrolling down, there's a summary of what the project's all about and a map locating it, telling you who the sponsors are. These are the dashboard type graphic displays of indicator data. And then continuing to scroll, this is a link to the dashboard, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a bit. This is the overview that I mentioned before that kind of rolls up all the analysis for the whole site into a PDF that you can print and take with you. And then we have that access to the indicators themselves again, where you can click right on them and get access to the data. So I'm going to continue now with providing kind of an overview of what we have found in this latest update of the website. So the data on the website, as you may know, it gets updated on a continuous basis as new data is released. We're updating the site, not quite in real time, but pretty quickly. So we've completed the latest update of all the indicator data on the site. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as some of the most important trends. So the Mid-Hudson Valley really remains a vibrant part of New York State in many ways, in terms of what's happening with your population, what's happening with your economy. There are certainly some challenges that emerge looking at the data. Housing affordability is one, addiction, being able to make ends meet, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So this is just looking at the population change since 2000. You'll see the level for the region over that time is 6% increase of all those counties aggregated together, which might not sound that great, but it beats New York State at 2%. And I should mention here that all the data for New York State on this website reflects New York State excluding New York City. So we actually note that pretty much everywhere on the site. I didn't on the presentation, but it does. So the region is beating the state. You can see some of the counties are significantly higher than that state rate of growth. Not quite at the national level, though. In terms of the demographic changes that are happening in this region, they're really similar to what we see throughout upstate and the Northeast and really the country. The population is certainly aging. We have a growing population of older people and not so much growth in the younger age groups. These counties here in the region are becoming certainly more diverse with some especially fast growth among Hispanic and Asian residents. Still overwhelmingly white though, at about 80% total for the region. And one of the indicators that we added was around looking at the share of the population that's foreign born. So that's a proportion that has increased since 2000. And you can see there are a couple of counties in particular that have relatively high rates of folks who are foreign born. In terms of looking at some statistics on how the economy is doing, what are the economic opportunities available to the population to support themselves? This region is really strong relative to the rest of New York State when it comes to job growth. So 13% increase in jobs since 2001. Again, not at the national level. We track a couple of other specific indicators in this section around spending by county government and tourism revenue. And whenever we're looking at dollar figure type indicators, we do adjust them for inflation so that we can see the trends accounting for inflation. So accounting for inflation, county government spending has still grown about 14% since 2000. That's higher than the statewide rate of growth. Tourism revenue, our first year that we have comparable data is 2005, and that has increased 11%. And Sullivan and Green, when you look at the data on a per capita basis, which is really the right way to do it, are actually the strongest counties here locally when it comes to tourism. So this is really interesting. This is our data looking specifically at different sectors of the economy and how strong or weak the job growth has been in those sectors since 2000. Or 2001, I think it is actually. And you can see that most of the sectors have been growing. The glaring exception, of course, is manufacturing, where there's just been declines all over the country. The sector that has added the most jobs over this time period is the healthcare and social assistance sector, which has added about 30,000 jobs. Three other sectors are right below that with adding about 20,000 jobs each. That's professional and business services, financial activities, and leisure and hospitality. So how does that economy that we've got locally enable people to support themselves? I want to take a little bit of time now talking about this, I think, critically important topic of financial stability. So what we used to have in this project was the data on poverty, which is significant in some communities in this community, no doubt about it. But the overall poverty rate for the region is fairly low at 11%. That's below the state level and below the national level. We've added data now where we can look at residents' income in relation to the poverty level above just the flat poverty line. So there's a significant share of residents, almost 30%, who are making less than 3 times the poverty level. Actually between 100 and 300% of the poverty level. So why is this important? Well, because the living wage data that we've added to the site, this is a model that's developed by Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They produce this data actually for every county in the nation, and they look at regional cost of living and what it really takes for different types of families to support themselves. And that data suggests that people actually need to make about 3 times the poverty level, because of course the poverty level is so low, as I'm sure many people are nodding in this room, you understand. In order to make ends meet, they really need significantly more than the poverty level. As you can see here, For this region, 2 working parents, 2 children need about $86,000 a year is the estimate, and that is more than 3 times the poverty level of $25,000. Of course, it's even harder for single parents, right, because they've got just that one wage. So this is why we think this data is really important on living wage and on the income in relation to poverty level. So overall, median incomes in this region, although they are high, and they're higher than the state and the nation overall, they have not kept up with inflation. So since 2000, there's actually been an erosion in kind of the purchasing power of the median income by about 4%. And then this is where we see, both with income statistics and poverty statistics, the really persistent racial and ethnic disparities. Again, every community we work in, we see this pretty much at the same level in terms of that legacy of discrimination and lack of access affecting people of color and their ability to make decent incomes and stay out of poverty. You can see it's just not there for significant parts of the population. We also include some data for special populations on poverty. So about 7% of our seniors in the region and 5% of veterans are living in poverty currently. We have a couple of indicators on the site that look at participation and availability of help, government programs to help people who are struggling. A very low percent of children right now are participating in the subsidized childcare program. Not every family needs this, of course. I wouldn't ever suggest that this should be at 100%, but less than 2% of children are able to take advantage of subsidized childcare. And childcare is obviously one of those costs that really factors into the living wage models in terms of driving up what families really need. Another important program that we track as part of this project is the Earned Income Tax Credit and what the participation level is for that. That's a very important support, as I'm sure you know, for working folks who are not making high incomes. And so in this region, the participation in 2016 was about 14%, and it hasn't changed too much, and it is below the national level. So I know a lot of communities have programs to try to increase participation in Earned Income Tax Credit. Maybe you have something like that in this region as well. Housing is a big part of the picture when we think about what makes an area affordable for families and individuals to live in, and that's a real challenge in this community. Again, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that. The way we measure this on the site, it's called the Housing Affordability Ratio. We look at the median home value and divide it by the median household income. So as you can see, every county in the region, I should say the level that's considered affordable is about 2 or 3. So every county in the region, in the most recent set of years that we have available there, 2013-17, was above the level of 3. That was a slight improvement since 2008-2012, when of course the home prices had been run up by the housing bubble, which eventually burst, but still a real challenge. And if you compare the figures for all those counties to 2000, you can see it's really a shift and really making it more difficult for families and individuals to afford their lives here. So I'm just going to run through a couple of other examples of indicators that I think are important. There's lots more data on the site, as I'm sure you know. We have a variety of indicators related to how children are doing and how the educational system is doing with children. This one I wanted to highlight. This is pre-kindergarten participation. This is only highlighting the public programs, the universal pre-K and state-supported programs. And you can see there's been a big growth in most of the counties. Putnam County apparently does not, its school district does not participate in this program at all, but the rest have seen some significant growth. The regional level of participation is still below the state level. Overall, though, there are a few counties, as you can see there, that are approaching the state level of participation, which is 39%. And then this is an important indicator. Obviously, fatal drug overdoses have increased in this region 70% over that time period, 2007 to 2016. If you go back actually further, which we do on the site, to 2000, there's been an even larger increase because the rate back in 2000 was 4.1 per 100,000, and in this region now we're at 10.7. Thankfully, that's still a lot lower than the national level, which is 19.8. But you do have a couple of counties there that I've highlighted on this chart that are approaching that national level of fatal drug overdoses. Violent crime is one of the indicators that we track in our public safety section. And here too, we have kind of a good picture overall for the region. So all the little columns that are small at the bottom of the chart are the levels for the region, the state, and the nation. And you can see that the region and the state are both pretty far below the national level and declining. But then we do have local areas that have a significantly higher violent crime rate, and I've highlighted those there. Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, and Monticello are the highest rates in our region. So I really want to wrap up by talking a little bit about community engagement, which is sort of what we're all here for, right, is to engage in the community, engage in the data, engage and work together to improve the community. A couple of the indicators that we track in this section relate to charitable giving and voter participation. So average charitable giving in the region is below the state and the national level. It has been increasing, but not quite at the rate that the state and the nation have been. And then voter registration is a little bit lower than the state, and voter turnout is about even with the state at about 60% in presidential years. So that's an overview, kind of teasing you a little bit with some of the information that's available on the website. I really invite you to delve into it, explore it for yourselves. Always feel free to reach out to me with questions you have or any technical issues or things that you want to discuss, as well as the local funders and partners in this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.